Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette. So happy you joined us for this special Stay Curious episode on Thursday, May 29th, 2025. And we welcome ASM partner and outstanding artist Chris Calle to our set here. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Marquette.
Well, great
Always
to
a
see
pleasure
you.
to be here.
Well, it is. We've had a good time already. Chris, tell everybody why you're in town.
I'm in town for the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation Space Rendezvous Hall of Fame weekend.
And we've already been out at the Cocoa Beach Hilton, the new home for Shuttle Fest, April 25th next year, and ran into a couple astronauts already.
We
Shook
did.
hands with Scooter Altman and
Kurt
Brown, and that's kind of fun to just sit on a couch there and see all of our heroes go by.
And I was also able to see world-renowned photographer Mark Usiak.
We did see world-renowned photographer Mark
able to shake
Usiak.
his hand also.
And he would be here today, but he is the Uber driver for Marie Fullerton, wife of Gordon Fullerton. And she has been an outstanding crusader for the Apollo program and everything about her husband who died a while back. And so
And the shuttle program.
Yep. And also we're so we thought we'd have a few more people in the studio, but glad we don't, because we're going to look at Chris's artwork here a little bit.
With the abbreviated Stay Curious.
Yes, because where are you going after this?
I am going to John Zarella's restaurant, Italian restaurant, Zarella's, for some dinner and some drinks at the Astronaut Cocktail Challenge.
The Scholarship Foundation has 2 or 3 astronauts, this time 3, that do a cocktail challenge. They each make a picture of their favorite cocktail, pass it around, everybody gets a little drink of it, and some people get a lot of drink of it, and they vote on who's the best.
They do.
And it's a fundraiser for them, and it'll be a swan song for Caroline Shoemaker. We're going to see her picture here in the middle as she's stepping down as the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation president CEO, but it's a good thing for her. But what do y'all think about this green screen that Marty Winkel chose out of our host of Calle images?
I think that's outstanding.
It is a beautiful reinterpretation of one of the most iconic images ever put on a piece of film, and of course this is the visor shot of Apollo 11, and good job, my friend.
Thank you.
We're going to see a little more of that, but what inspired you to take this picture of a man that you've actually met many times, Buzz Aldrin?
Sure, Buzz is a great guy.
This interpretation of it.
Well, just my spin on it. I did a painting called Reflections 1969, which is a very similar image, much more vertical, and I wanted to highlight in this one the brushstrokes of the visor. In the visor, you can really see.
We'll see some other images on there in a minute. Let me get.
He took away my piece of paper.
Yeah, I'm not sure the first 2. I don't think everything. That's our script there. But here, be useful and hold up this book. Another wonderful piece of artwork. Yes.
Hey, you want me to hold this one up?
Is on here. This, again, Starbound by Emily Carney and Bruce McCandless III. That's your Gene Cernan.
That is
That's not a photograph,
My painting,
folks.
Last Man, Gene Cernan.
Love that. And he autographed my copy from
I autographed this copy as well.
And
this is the rare black autographed copy, and that is the rare copper autographed copy.
So you want to get that book, but not just for the catchy cover there that you can't resist, but for the great stories in there that Bruce McCandless and Emily Carney tell on there. So let's kick it off here. Just want to let you know, if you want to become a member of the museum, it's $25. $45 for the family, different tiers there that you can get, and you can see that on our website. There's a promo that we did for last year. You were on the 29th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was a Wednesday. Today's a Thursday. We have U.S. postage stamp designer, which is something that you space lovers of Chris's wonderful art don't know a lot about. But here's another piece. We'll show you. Wait, what do we got here? Oh, look what we got there. Lloyd's popping up
a month
there.
ago.
Yeah. That's
Lloyd Franklin.
in here after Shuttle Fest.
Yeah.
Saw Lloyd in here yesterday, and I know he loves Shuttle Fest and all that we did there. So Lloyd, see you tonight, and then he's going out to San Diego where they got a big
Correct.
party going on out there.
Apollo event.
Apollo event. Here, Chris, a couple years ago you did this, and talk a little bit about your montages. What is your
Sure.
thinking there? Of course, you got to have a lot of blue in your photo, in your work, because after all, he is a blue and gold alumni of Michigan. So everything he
Go
does
blue.
has blue.
Go
in
blue,
there.
Dave Stengy.
Okay. But no, kind of walk people through here what your process
Sure. So,
is.
I do traditional oil painting, acrylic painting, pencil drawing, even some pen and ink drawing. This is kind of a combination of many of those things. Photography, painting, drawing. I call it montage because I'm combining many different elements. I think it's a wonderful technique for when you want to display like the history of something, whether it's space flight or politics or anything, because you can incorporate a lot of different imagery into one kind of cohesive final image. And for this was one I did actually for the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation. I believe it was 2 or 3 years ago. They gave it away as for some of their attendees, one of their ticket levels. It was a print. The original is probably 30 by 40, but it was an 11 by 14 print that they gave away.
And there we talk about Caroline there. Some of this stuff is out of sync or something, Marty.
It is. I bet you there's
I
a whole
don't-
nother.
I think
probably
yeah,
another
I
line.
think I
There's
got the
another
whole
line.
other row up there. Here's Caroline Shoemaker that's stepping down. She's going to another nonprofit that she also worked for, but the Mercury Astronaut Foundation 40-year Legacy Scholarship Foundation. They are founded by the Mercury astronauts.
Lloyd Franklin calling right now.
Oh, is he Lloyd? Hey, Lloyd. This is a beautiful side of the Hall of Fame building out there at Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex. They're celebrating 40-year legacy. Wally Schirra famously said this might be our greatest legacy of Mercury astronauts is all the scholarships they've given out. And look at all the scholarship fields of study, life sciences, down to meteorology, astronomy, chemistry, mechanical engineering, all these great universities. And yes, the Ohio State University's there, Michigan, Purdue, Illinois, Texas, okay, all institutions that have had students educated thanks to the giving of the Scholarship Foundation.
Absolutely.
There's a beautiful tribute to the shuttle.
That was another piece I did for the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation. Same concept.
I believe each of the images of astronauts has a significance.
Yes. So for this piece, they wanted to highlight the past and present presidents of the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation. So in this piece, there's
Kurt Brown up there.
Kurt Brown, yep. Al Warden, Owen Garriott, Charlie Duke.
Who was the Mercury astronaut?
Alan Shepard, I believe. Jim Lovell. And I think that was all of them.
On the moon would be Charlie Duke.
Yep. So I tried to incorporate each of those presidents in kind of a cohesive way, and highlighting the space shuttle as the major imagery.
Just to show you the brush strokes of this master here, using a bunch of mediums there, but true to form of his heritage. We'll talk about that here in just a second. There is one of your latest works of art.
Yep.
Just simply explain that.
I put another montage image together for Shuttle Fest. Space Shuttle Commander Eileen Collins was in attendance. She was a big hit, and I put this together as one of the pieces I had available at Shuttle Fest last month.
What was her reaction to it?
I think she loved it. Yeah, I did a couple different ones of Eileen Collins. I think she really enjoyed them. And those actually, that sequence, that shuttle sequence in the background.
Don't tell me that's from the world famous photographer
Usiak. Yes,
Usiak. Okay, Mark and Tom
Usiak.
Bob Preston and Nolte, Steve Nolte's the other team there on there. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. It's just there's some other stuff at the bottom
There is.
in there. So, but Astronaut Hall of Fame Saturday they're going to induct Bernard Harris on the left and Peggy Whitson on the right. We talked about that on the show before. Peggy will not be there. She's in quarantine for her Axiom 4 flight.
How long do
That
they
will
have to be
happen
in
Sunday. It'll be a week from Sunday is the flight.
How long do they have to be in quarantine?
At least 10 days, I think.
Huh.
But I'll bet somebody out there smart enough to know. My
Sure.
daughter, Jessie's on board here saying like and subscribe, everybody, to get our numbers up there. We're saying hello to Dave Stange, Steve
Go
Jokins.
Blue.
Yep. Mark Thale. You met Mark at Shuttlefest.
Yep.
Helene Milbert will be on tomorrow. Helene's going to do a story about being a little girl and her dad being one of the first photographers, Don DeFilippi, out there at the Cape Canaveral Space
during
Force.
Mercury or Gemini or Apollo?
Yes, Mercury.
Wow.
He actually followed Wally Schirra around. Have seen cool pictures of Wally skiing off of a boat.
Oh my gosh.
Water skiing and stuff like that. So you're going to enjoy Helene. Thank you, lady, for doing this. She's writing a book about her dad.
Great.
From
As
this
she should.
perspective. And the UCAC she's talked to, she's really done a lot of research talking to the surviving photographers
Great.
of the Mercury Gemini, or even before the Mercury flight. To figure it out back then was amazing,
Sure.
and you're going to enjoy that tomorrow. Here's what the Hall of Fame looks like. That's the backside of Al Shepard, and they put astronauts' profiles portrait on a lucite backdrop. There you see Truly and Rick Houck in the foreground. I think that's the Gemini guys in the back. They have a little hologram thing there that you can pick your favorite astronaut, take a picture of them with there. But the ceremonies you can go to Saturday at 10:30 underneath Atlantis. Just your ticket to the Kennedy Space Center. $75, I think it is, or your season pass. That I paid mine yesterday was $149 for the season pass. But guess for what? It's a lot cheaper than Universal or Disneyland.
A
out there,
bargain at
Disney
twice the
World.
price.
It certainly is. And to see a real spaceship underneath all of this. So, all right. Anything you'd like to, like, that's a picture of you and your dad there.
My dad, Paul Calle.
But
Yep.
anything else about the Scholarship Foundation? You've been honored to be part of it for
Absolutely.
a few years here, and they're
got
using your work on different things. So
Yep, they've got a great mission. They've got a great team behind them, and it's going to be another great weekend. It always is.
Good.
Culminating in the gala on Saturday night.
yeah, and astronauts have interestingly become part of our jobs in a way
True.
that we're not really starstruck by these rare travelers of space. There's only 633 humans that have orbited the Earth, but it is pretty cool just sitting on the couch and watching the world go by there. And as we've had so many of them on our show, astronauts and encounters with them, Kennedy Space Center. If you get an opportunity to go to this event, you won't regret it, even if it's like a bucket list thing for you. All right. Well, here's your dad, Paul Calle.
Okay.
And let me take that off there. Okay. Let's get the full picture of you and your dad. He passed away, I believe, like 13 years ago. Am I right? Something like that.
Yes.
And he's in this Western motif, and yet we're going to talk about him as a space artist.
Well, like I was mentioning to Connie earlier, Anita earlier, he had many different facets of his artistic career, and each one is, I think, unique and important in its own right. But there was his work as an illustrator during his early years, and a byproduct of that was stamp designing, and he designed the iconic First Man on the Moon stamp, which we're going to see. And then he did this space. He was one of the original 8 artists asked to cover the Mercury program, and then Gemini and Apollo. So it was a space was another part of his life, his artistic life. And then for the last 30 years or so, he painted and did paintings and drawings of the mountain men of the fur trade. That was his kind of passion. Some Native American, but it was more how the Native Americans interacted with the mountain men of the fur
Show
trade.
you a picture of that in a minute.
Yep.
Didn't grab your book here. We grabbed the other book there, but this is, you want to know more about the Calles as artists? Paul Calle chosen the first 8 artists handpicked by, well, not really James Webb. He had who was the
James Dean.
James Dean became
yeah.
the first director of the NASA art program in 1963 for the launch of Gordon Cooper.
Yeah.
Is when we put the A in STEM education to call it STEAM here.
There you go.
But we're going to see another picture.
Well, interesting. I got a funny story about that. I'll try to be brief, but my dad
and try to be funny too, right?
It is funny. It was during Gemini, and it might have even been for Gordon Cooper's, but the engineers and the electricians were in, I don't know, whether this VAB or one of the buildings, and all these wires all over the place. And my dad was sketching, and some other artists were sketching and painting, and my dad asked one of the engineers or electricians, he said, how do you know that, once all those wires are going all over the place, when you push that button, what's going to happen is what you expect to happen. And they said, oh, that's easy. We just connect them all up. We know where to connect them. But what we're trying to figure out is, how do you, when you see that, and they looked at whatever my dad was sketching, how does that translate to what you see on your paper, what we see on your paper? And at that moment, my dad realized that the engineers, the electricians, the NASA workers were as interested in what the artists were doing because they didn't understand it, as the artists were interested in what the astronauts and engineers and electricians were doing because they didn't understand that part of it. So it was a very interesting moment for him to realize that,
wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is a
and
moment.
I believe that story might be in the book.
Well, you want to check that book out. Here's the cover of it, Apollo 11, but it's all about the, this actually is a Saturn V rocket lifting off called Power to Go.
Yep.
And where might we see this? This is, we're going to have a brag picture
The
here.
original is at Air and Space Museum, but when we get to that.
Yeah, we'll show it here in a second. Where have I got that? Yeah, we'll revisit that here in a second. But I was going to say about the left brain, right brain. I experienced that with Marty Winkel all the time because constellations in the sky that I vividly see the dots of. Not, and Marty's a super intelligent guy. He doesn't see that sky like I do, even when I point it out, right, Marty?
That's why you guys are great
Say
partners.
hi on there, Marty. We've been spending some good time with our buddy here, and I know, thank you for picking him up at the airport today.
Thank you, too.
Did he give you a good tip, or at least?
He bought breakfast.
I
That
gave
was
him
pretty
five
good.
stars. I gave
That's
my
right.
Uber driver, Marty,
That's right.
5 stars.
You bought breakfast today.
But Mark, I do see the Big Dipper. I can see that.
Yeah.
That's the end of
Okay.
it.
The Big
The
Dipper.
rest are just.
But he doesn't
random
see Ursa
stories.
Major, the big bear, in the Big Dipper in the tail end.
See, but that's why you guys are perfect co-chairs for Shuttlefest.
Yeah.
You've got, Marty's engineering background and that thinking, and your creative mind, that they're not in conflict with each other. They complement each other.
That's right. Thank you. And we're well on the way to another getting Stay Curious managed, or Shuttlefest managed the way we've always wanted it to be managed. So
It's gonna be great.
we're going to have a hard out here in about 15 minutes to make it to Cocoa Beach. But here's a great picture. Your dad's in the foreground there, right?
Yep, I believe that's my dad, and I think the gentleman in the middle is Lamar Dodd, who was another one of the early artists, and I'm not sure who the third one is. But
And,
he got to know Jim Dean, the director of the program, really well. He got to know people like Robert Rauschenberg. He got to know Rauschenberg pretty well because Rauschenberg covered, I think, a few of the earlier Apollo, but then Apollo 11, and a lot of and Bob McCall, of course. My dad. I could give a whole talk on a friendly rivalry between Bob McCall and Paul Calle.
Bob McCall, very well known for his murals in different areas there. And
my dad always referred to him as Mr. Space.
Mr. Space. He just stayed in space at Lane the whole time.
Yeah.
We might have Helene Milbert's dad up there, our speaker for tomorrow.
Maybe.
Our guest on Stay Curious tomorrow might be one of the photographers in there. And I see your dad always carried a camera around because you can't sketch everything.
Yep.
You still have that camera? You think?
Probably. Got the sketchbook still.
Got the sketchbook too. Yeah, you've got some awesome sketchbooks. So this is the May 15th, 1963 launch.
That was his response to Gordon Cooper's launch in the Atlas. And Jim Dean wrote in the book you're going to show, and in a couple other things, that he was with my dad when they saw the Atlas go up. and my dad's reaction was, "My God, there's a man in that thing."
Yeah, that's a great quote that's in these books. So, uh, this is not a photograph. This is a drawing.
The painting, oil painting,
Painting.
very large oil painting,
And-
probably 60 by 40. Something
So,
like that.
your dad, how did this come about?
Well, that's Gordon Cooper's spacesuit and gloves and helmet and photo. And my father.
So did he go to Kennedy Space Center and set all this up?
No, he did not. He was trying to figure out a way to kind of represent the end of the Mercury program, because Gordon Cooper's mission was the final flight. And so he painted this oil painting titled "Knight's Armor, End of the Beginning." So he kind of equated the astronaut's spacesuit and helmet like the knights, of Knights of the Round Table, and then the end of the beginning represents the end of Mercury. So he set this up at home. NASA actually sent him the spacesuit and the helmets and the gloves.
Just regular U.S. mail.
UPS or whatever they had back
They
then.
didn't have UPS back in
No bubble wrap.
1963.
Just a bunch of newspaper probably wrapped in a bunch of newspaper.
Probably cost 85 cents to mail the whole thing.
And we had it for a long time.
And you got to something special there with it.
Yeah,
There we
those are the
go.
gloves. Got them on the wrong hands, and there's another
That's
great.
you.
There's another great photo of my brother with the helmet on.
Uh-huh.
I'll have to send you that one sometime.
Well, we're talking with artist Chris Calle here, a true partner of the American Space Museum,
Thank you, Mark.
has financially supported us and with his artwork, and just been a great partner as also co-chair of Shuttle Fest with Marty and myself. Go ahead with a couple questions.
I kind of think of myself as your consigliere. How's that?
Consigliere, okay. All right.
Yes.
Whatever that means, I'll go with it.
Advisor.
Marty?
I have a comment from RG Jubilee. As an artist myself, you are one of the best astronaut artists I know.
Wow, thank you. I appreciate
And we
that.
have a question from Dean Babcock. We have two questions. One from Dean. I'll find the other one later. Once you have decided on a painting, how long before you have produced a finished product?
I've got a wonderful answer for that, and it's the answer that came from my father when someone asked him early on,
Yeah.
how long does it take to, paint that? And he would always say, a lifetime of experience. So it really depends. The real answer is it really depends. Sometimes things, a day, 2 days, 4 days, sometimes 3, 4, 5 months. I'm working on this really, really big Earthrise that's been a project. It's a long one.
Inspiration is not a button that you turn off and on.
True.
And as a photographer all my life, and I'd like to pick up a sketch pad and just diddle around with some pencil stuff.
Yep.
There's times where I'm just really inspired to do it, and other times where, I don't even want to think about it. But
I don't feel that. I never have that.
Well,
I always
you're
wanna do-
you're a professional artist. I'm just saying,
Yep.
it's
No, I know.
inspiration hits you, and
Sure.
you roll with it, man.
Yeah.
That's why,
In my illustration career, it was interesting. I'm a visual guy, creative guy, visual guy. And in my illustration career, I had a visual in my mind about what it was going to be. And then do a little sketch sometimes. But once I got to doing the actual final product, in my mind, it was already done because I knew roughly what it was going to look like. I always felt that was interesting. That's just that way my mind works.
Chris's training, by the way, I equate you to the rock guitarist Eddie Van Halen, who never had another job except playing a guitar in a band. And you told me that when your dad, when you wanted to go get a part-time job or something, your dad said just sit in the corner and draw a cat playing with something.
Well,
that you have done this literally
sure.
all your life.
And when I was in college, when I'd come home for the summers, this is probably what you're referring to. He gave me actually some like illustration assignments. So that's what I did to kind of prep me for, for my career, which was invaluable as far as I was concerned.
Well, it's been a wonderful father-son relationship, of course, and you
Great.
carry his legacy on actually working in the same studio that you all shared in, tell everybody where you live.
I lived in Ridgefield, Connecticut. We had a studio in Weston, Connecticut for a long time. It was an old converted barn. It was really, really an interesting, very fun place to work.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to carry on here because we got some new
Yep.
pictures to show. If you want to know more about NASA art and so forth, this is a good book to get. It's actually got one of those 3D hologram fronts
holographic,
on it there.
or lenticular.
But this is the kind of stuff that your father
Apollo
did.
17. That was my dad drew that on the hood of our station wagon down for the launch. That was that late night launch.
Wow, his command of white space in dark is
Yep.
is truly wonderful. And here again, we revisit
Power to go.
the Atlas rocket, Power, just called Power.
No, that's Power to go. That's
Oh,
the
that is
Saturn
Power
V.
to go. Okay, it's
Saturn
Saturn
V.
V. Yeah, Power has three kind of little
Yep.
styles to it there. So this you found out is being displayed somewhere.
Well,
I mean,
I found out.
You knew
Sure,
about it.
sure.
But yeah.
It's at the Tom Stafford Museum in Weatherford, Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
The
The new one version of it.
This is the yes.
There's
this
one
is
at the U.S. Rocket Center in Huntsville.
Right. They made an enlargement 2 stories tall as you walk up the steps to the Davidson Center in Huntsville. They used the imagery on all the panels, all the walls at Tom Stafford's museum where the new wing.
Yeah,
was
and that's Bharat Ramanujan
Yep.
in there. Sent you that picture there.
Yep.
Tom Stafford's Museum in Oklahoma. Now, I'll bet every home somewhere in a drawer, in the junk drawer, somewhere in the old stationery stuff, is a first man on the moon stamp. And that has a significance to you, for sure.
My father designed that stamp, and I think it's one of the most iconic, certainly space stamps in the world, but I think one of the most iconic stamps,
Yeah.
certainly for the United States. And I agree with you. Whether you're a stamp collector or a space collector or neither, you probably at some point had or have that stamp or a first day cover of it kicking around.
Your dad did this stamp.
That's the Gemini twin
First twin
spacewalk.
stamp.
Yep.
With a theme there.
Ed White.
Ed White Spacewalk, Gemini 3, and
It's a original hand drawing on a first day cover that my dad did.
you could buy some of these at your website, right?
Yeah, I've got a few of these left. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is so my father, when he designed in 1969 that first man on the moon stamp, in 1989 for the 20th anniversary of the Postal Service asked me to design the stamp. It was a priority mail stamp at the time. And then they jointly asked us to design 2 stamps, this express mail stamp and a 29-cent stamp for the 25th anniversary. And it was fun because those 2 stamps, we were not sharing a studio at the time, but we still passed the painting and drawing back and forth. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
What a great memory there. You are the author or artist of how many U.S. space stamps?
Almost 40, I think.
40.
Stamps, not just space stamps.
Did you ever do any mallard ducks?
I did not do any of the duck stamps.
Okay,
No.
no duck stamps.
No duck stamps.
But
Never got into that.
what are some of the stamps that we might know?
Oh, well, obviously, first man on the moon for space collectors, Theodore von Karman, the aerospace engineer.
The Karman line.
Yep, the von Karman
Oh
line.
my gosh!
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know you did that
Yeah.
stamp.
First stamp I ever designed was Harry Truman, President Harry Truman. Chester Nimitz, the Admiral Chester Nimitz. I designed 2 stamps for sign language.
Your dad did an awesome Steinbeck. I'm familiar.
No,
with,
he
right?
didn't do Steinbeck.
Okay,
Or Robert Frost.
Robert
Yeah,
Frost.
That was his favorite.
Oh.
Actually, was his favorite stamp
Oh,
he
really?
ever designed. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
And he in some of the sketches for Robert Frost, he had these beautiful bare trees like in winter, and he had this orange ball for the sun. He wanted it to be black and white with that one little hint of color,
Uh-huh.
and they just never took him up on those sketches. And one of my stamp designs, Connecticut statehood, I incorporated a little orange ball in that one.
Chris is actually a little superstar at all stamp shows out there. Probably as well known there, if not better, in some stamp
Yeah.
circles than you are in the space.
Well,
circles
same as
there.
my dad kind of was, known
Yeah.
for those different levels of his career.
And because their artwork is just so. There we are.
Yep.
Final shots of your dad
Yep.
there. Don't I see the great moment is behind him there,
Yeah.
which is my favorite Apollo, one of his. But this is
One
some
of his Western pieces.
Wow,
Mountain
they're
Man.
just so intricate. And there's your dad.
Yep. Sketch
you
of Wally
you were
Schirra.
in the movie First Man,
I
depicting
was.
your dad doing
was.
what?
sketching Ryan Gosling as Neil Armstrong during the Apollo 11 breakfast.
There's a couple of little snippets of you in the corner there.
Yeah.
doing
Well,
that.
not so many snippets. There's a whole at least second of
Yeah.
my entire face.
Yeah,
And then
there-
my hands sketching.
very good.
This was,
you become
for
friends
Apollo-
with the
Apollo,
book author of that.
Jim
and-
Hansen, yeah, it's a great guy. These were actually Apollo 7. The first time NASA had any artist in the suiting up room was for Apollo 7.
So
And
Paul
little,
Calle turned that into this.
Yep. Yep. That was
Uh,
basically like a preliminary on the spot, and then this final pencil
All
drawing.
right. And then we did a T-shirt of your dad's
We
version
did,
of
we
Neil
did.
Armstrong
Yep,
there.
yep.
It's beautiful. We're whipping through these a little
Yeah.
bit because we want to get over Cocoa Beach. I was always impressed my first visit here at the museum to see this pencil drawing of that, and that is your dad's of
Yep.
Gemini
Yep.
7 there.
Yeah,
in those funky spacesuits.
he did a series of there were probably 20 or 30 big 20 by 30 inch pencil drawings that someone at NASA, maybe it was Jim Dean, the director of the art program, coined Paul Calle's sketchbook, because it was all throughout Gemini. It was I think my dad went on the Gemini 4 recovery ship, and he sketched the astronauts Gus Grissom and John Young doing their medical debriefing. That was kind of his role, sketching that, and many other things on that trip.
Well, what a great career. Look it up. There's their website. Just go CalleArt.com.
Calle Space Art.
Calle Space
Or
Art.
Calle Art.
You'll get there. Here's one of your works.
It is.
Not a photograph, okay. Ed White on the
Yeah.
most historic spacewalk. It'll be this image like this will be 100 years from now.
Yep.
We'll say space there.
I made a limited edition print of this, as many people have seen, and Jim McDivitt signed one of my prints, and he signed the original for the collector, and he wrote Jim McDivitt, Gemini 4, and then in quotes, my view, because that was his view of Ed White's
He
spacewalk.
took the photographs for sure. Again, like his dad, a master with the pencil in his hand.
Next, that was Apollo 17, final boot print on the moon kind of
Right.
concept.
And then you did an Artemis tribute.
piece, yep. That was another piece for the Astronaut Scholarship
Yes,
Foundation.
that was
They
very
gave-
popular.
They gave
2
that
years
as-
ago, I
they
think
gave
that was.
as the print.
Yeah, everybody liked that a lot in there.
Yep.
And then you played with this with different things. But
I
there's
have.
What
I
you
have.
call this?
I call it Touched by the Moon, and I've incorporated different backgrounds, different interesting backgrounds.
And here you use Van Gogh's
Van Gogh's
Starry
Starry
Night.
Night. Yep.
You've
Yeah.
used other things behind there. I think I've said hi to everybody. Jessie, my daughter, reminds you to hit that like button. E. Lee Wilson's watching today.
Okay.
And Lee will be joining you Friday night at the Scholarship Foundation with the art exhibit there
Yes, sir.
with some pieces of his. Thank you for watching, Lee. And Robert Law up in Dundee, Scotland. RG Jubilee wanted to know, do you always use a palette knife texture?
No, I rarely use a palette knife texture. That I use texture, so it maybe appears palette knife, but I find the palette knife is very hard to control. There's a real art to doing that. I just put it on with a brush, sometimes a very small brush.
Well, here's your latest that you came in. Marty will be happy to see the greatest logo of all
I did this for Marty.
contractors there.
I utilized my Last Man painting, which is
Alright.
on the book, and incorporated all the Apollo patches, as well as the NASA patch and Grumman patch for Marty.
Thank you for
I made a
putting
little print of
Apollo
that.
1 on there. You being all the space Apollo stuff I see, the plates and collages of the
Really?
patches. It's absent on a lot of them.
Wow.
Apollo
Well,
1.
next time I come, we'll talk about Apollo 1. I've got some great stories with my dad. about Apollo 1.
Great. Well, this is your newest piece out there. We'll be putting that on there, and then this is
Yeah, I'm
pretty.
gonna roll out
interesting
that
too.
as a big print, actually.
And we'll use that on the 4th of July.
There you go.
Out there. So, and now your full view of this new version of the visor
Right.
shot.
That's before I digitally added those stars in the background. And then this is just a different version where I just changed the colors a little bit. So I
Uh-huh.
utilized my oil painting and just digitally changed it a little bit.
And then to let the universe be sort of
Lead
in
the way.
background in there is really clever, and what you do as an artist, my friend.
Thank
Just
you.
great
Thank you,
work
thank
there.
you.
And love the Touched by the Moon. Jubilee says there, and Elena thank you for watching, young lady. She says amazing pictures.
Thank you.
And I'm looking, Marty. Anybody else we need to have there?
I think you got everybody.
Yep, we got to
All
roll.
right. Great. So thank you all for watching. We're going to have
Thank you.
Helene Milbert on tomorrow. Talk from artist to photographer, her wonderful dad. And she's inspired to do a book about the photographers of the
Great.
early Cape, which
Terrific.
there's really nothing about them out there. And so, Chris, thank you so much, my
Thank you,
friend.
man. Always
Thank
a pleasure.
you.
Always
Indeed.
a pleasure being
And,
here.
always out there. So thank you all for watching today. Hope you, again, how can they see more of your images?
CallieSpaceArt.com
All right.
or ChrisCalleFDC.com or CallieArt.com.
You put the name Callie in there, I guarantee you, you're going to get...
Paul and Chris Calle. That'll
That's
get you.
right. That's right. So, well, we're going to have fun tonight. We'll tell you all about it tomorrow. Until next time, I'm Mark Marquette saying we can't wait to see you again to bridge the space between us.